It's a minute past 9 a.m. here in Dakar and in Conakry. Good morning and welcome to the D-Day of the 2025 presidential election in Guinea, which will bring an end to the military transition led by General Mamadou Doumbouya, who himself is a candidate. Thank you for tuning in to the live coverage here on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM and live online at WADR Facebook, as well as YouTube at WADR English. On Utelsat, WADR is on 16A on the frequency 12687 MHz. I'm Abdullah Hassan with the entire team. Once again, we welcome you to our live broadcast of the general elections in Guinea. Now, it's going to be a full day here as all eyes, especially across Africa, on Guinea today, as 6.7 million eligible voters in the country will head to the ballot for the first presidential elections since the 2021 coup. Voting commenced an hour ago. Today's event comes after months of intense campaigning crisscrossing the country by the candidates. In the first half of the broadcast, we'll link up with reporters across Guinea for a feel of what's happening at various polling stations as voters begin queuing to cast their ballots. And don't forget, we're streaming live on WADR.org and you can view us live on Facebook. Thank you for joining us. Today's election in Guinea is described by many as a special election and a test of the nation's democracy and its transition from military rule since 2021. There is a total of 9 candidates validated by the Directorate of General Elections for the December 28 ballot. But before we bring you their profiles, it is important to state that as Guineans vote today, they do so under the watch of national and international observers who have arrived in large numbers in the country days earlier. Abdul Fattah Musa, ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, led the delegation for more than 120 election observers from the regional bloc. Ahead of the election, the General Directorate of Elections of Guinea organized a media conference whose objective was to equip nearly 10,000 observers with the rules and principles of election observation in the country. Janabou Touré is president of the DGE.
Observers, for example, must not enter a polling station and question polling station officials on behalf of candidates. That is prohibited. They may verify whether candidates' representatives are present in the room, but they cannot go so far as to ask questions. They must not interfere in the conduct of voting in a polling station, nor should they interfere in the vote counting. They are there to observe what is being done and to take notes. The use of phones, indeed any electronic device capable of photographing a vote, is prohibited inside the voting booth. Therefore, when you go to take your ballot, you leave your phone with the secretary until you have finished casting your vote. This is because it compromises the secrecy of the vote and also encourages vote buying. If someone promised to vote for a candidate and is asked to bring proof, they could go in, vote for the candidate, take evidence, and then come out to collect payment. Why no envelope? Because it is a single, secure ballot. There is no need to place a single ballot in an envelope. Envelopes are necessary when there are multiple ballots, one for each candidate. In that case, when you take several ballots, you put one of your choice in an envelope and discard the others. Guinea moved away from that system some time ago. We use a single ballot, and I can reassure you that we have one of the most secure ballots available.
Janabou Touré is president of the Directorate of General Elections of Guinea. Now, between hopes and expectations, voters in Guinea share their views on what they expect from the future president and why they are voting.
My name is Boubacar Oumar Diallo. I have high expectations. Like all Guineans, we aspire to become a developed country, like the other countries in the sub-region. We want it to be an emerging country. To have an emerging country, we must govern with the utmost transparency, meaning the sharing of our research and also equal opportunities for all Guineans in all positions of responsibility. So, we don't choose someone because they are from the same ethnic group, religion or region. We choose someone because they are competent. If we do this and justice is fair, I assure you, the country can easily emerge.
Each time we tell ourselves it's a new beginning, a new era, and that this time, at least, the candidates who are truly seeking something will be delivered by the people, and that they never truly believe they've done everything for the people. No, that's insufficient, because the history of a people is a continuous journey from zero to infinity.
I am going to make an important appeal to the citizens. Today is a very important day. Everyone must go out there with their ballots. If it's your ballot, go and vote for the candidate of your choice. After voting, return home quietly and wait for the results. If the candidate you choose represents the voice of Guinea, you must celebrate your joy without disturbing your neighbors. If, unfortunately, your candidate was not chosen, you must also grieve without disturbing your neighbors.
It's a very important day for me, and I believe for every other Guinean. Voting is a right, and we must exercise it. Selecting a leader in a country is very important, as it controls every other aspect of development, from economy to jobs to infrastructure. So if we did not select a better leader, we will continue complaining over and over again. Finally, we the youth, we constitute a major percentage of the country's population, and we've often been silent. And therefore, this is a time for us to speak louder through the ballot box. Thank you very much.
Voices of Guinean voters there. Be sure that WADR will bring you live updates on our social media platforms and on radio from now until the evening hours. Let's just remind you here that a statement from the Embassy of the Republic of Guinea in Senegal states that diaspora voting process for eligible voters is taking place in 5 regions this Sunday, December 28, 2025. They include in the Dakar region, Alassane Njai Alo School, Medina Street 25, Eggs Blaisjan, Dota Sek Cultural Center Side, El Haji Moore Job School, Medina Street 19, Blaisjan opposite Tilane Market. I hope I got that right. In Kedugu, it's taking place at the Cultural Center. In Kaolack, voting is taking place for Guinean eligible voters at the Abdoulaye Khan High School. In St. Louis, it's taking place at the Livestock School. And finally, in Chess Umburu, voting is taking place for Guineans at the Salis Station College Second Councillor. For today's vote, following a rigorous process and reform in the political landscape, the Directorate of General Elections in Guinea validated 9 candidates who are vying for the presidency, each presenting a distinct vision for rebuilding sustainable democracy in the West African nation. For today's electoral process, the 9 candidates have all presented a manifesto and will be taking a look at their profiles. First are the profiles of Makale Kamara, a seasoned female diplomat, and Ibrahima Abisila, a mathematician and former Minister of Energy. Let's join Deborah Amour.
Makale Kamara is a diplomat, lawyer, and civil society leader. The 69-year-old, who hails from Mamu, is widely recognized for her commitment to political dialogue and the advancement of women in Guinea. She has completed several training programs with the International Labour Organization and in 1984 studied international relations and development management at an American university in Washington, D.C. Kamara served as Minister of Agriculture, Livestock and Forestry from 1994 to 1996. Nearly 2 decades later, she was appointed Minister of Foreign Affairs, a position she held from 2015 to 2017. In March 2020, she was elected President of the Front for the National Alliance and contested the presidential election held on October 18 of the same year. Over the course of her career, she also served on the National Steering Committee working to combat female genital mutilation in Guinea. Makale Camara is one of the 9 validated candidates contesting the presidential election scheduled for December 28. Another notable candidate is Ibrahima Abesila. Born in Kindia in 1951, he pursued higher education in Côte d'Ivoire, enrolling in the Faculty of Science, where he studied mathematics and physics. He obtained his bachelor's degree in 1970. Later that year, he moved to the United States to study electrical engineering at the University of Maryland, earning a master's degree in the field. Leader of the new generation for the Republican Party, Sila previously contested the 2010 presidential election, securing 3.23% of the vote. Most recently, he was appointed Minister of Energy following the coup d'etat led by Mamadi Doumbouya in 2021.
Many thanks, Deborah Amour, with that brief summary. Up next are the profiles of 2 presidential candidates. Here is Christopher Ticho with a summary of El Haj Bona Keita, leader of the RPG party, and Mohamed Sharif Tunkara, a former parliamentarian.
El Haj Bona Keita is a familiar figure in Guinea's presidential landscape. He first entered the race in 1993, but the founder and leader of the RJP party failed to make an impact. A second bid in 2010 ended in another setback, with his elimination in the first round after gaining just 0.08% of the vote. Undoubted by this defeat, he persisted. In March 2020, he achieved a notable breakthrough by winning a seat in Guinea's 9th legislature, securing 0.95% of the parliamentary elections. Both an entrepreneur and a politician, El Haj Bona Keita built his wealth in the mining, real estate, and commercial sectors through Batax Bona International Mining, a company specialized in diamond trade. His political party, the RGP, was among 44 parties that aligned with former President Alpha Conde's RPG-AR coalition. Keita's background closely mirrors that of Mohamed Sharaf Tunkara, a 72-year-old businessman who has spent nearly 4 decades in the diamond trade. Tunkara's journey, despite limited formal education, began as a taxi driver, a job he says he took on to support his family. He later entered the fabric trade alongside his mother and experienced and opened the door to extensive travel. These travels across Africa and beyond enabled him to build strong business networks and expand his ventures, which now span from Conakry to the Americas, including Paris, where his family resides. In 2020, Mohamed Sharaf Tunkara was elected to Parliament and became a member of the Mines and Industry Committee under the presidency of Alpha Conde.
Christopher Aticho there with a profile of 2 of the 9 validated candidates vying for presidency in Guinea's elections today. Let's now join Sankule Chanko to present profiles of presidential aspirants Dr. Fayemi Lemono and Abdoulaye Yero Balde.
Abdoulaye Yero Balde holds an MBA from Columbia Business School. He served as Guinea's Minister of Higher Education from January 2016 to February 2020. During his time in office, he used this position to carry out major reforms in the higher education sector. These included, among others, the modernization of university infrastructure, the revision of academic curricula, and the strengthening of partnerships with national and international institutions. As an economist at the World Bank, Abdoulaye Yero Balde contributed in the 1990s to the design of microeconomic programs for developing countries. Between 2005 and 2015, Abdoulaye Yero Balde successfully served as a senior executive at Global Alumina in New York and as first vice governor of the Central Bank of the Republic of Guinea. In the latter role, he contributed to the conduct of monetary policy, the regulation of the banking sector, and the strengthening of the country's financial stability. He is known for his decision to leave Alpha Conde's government in 2020, when the latter began imposing his plan for a 3rd term. Also on the starting line for this Sunday's presidential election is Fire Lansana Milimono, a trained educator. He was born on November 25, 1962 in Gwekedu in Forest Guinea, in southern Guinea. His career has been marked by the training of secondary school principals, prefectural education directors, and regional education inspectors. Thanks to a Francophonie Excellence Scholarship, Fire Milimono prepared and defended his master's degree and PhD in educational administration at the University of Montreal in 1993. He later worked as an education consultant at the World Bank and as a pension fund manager at Georgetown University in the United States. He began his political career in 1991 with the advent of multi-party politics. His return to politics came in 2008 as an opposition figure through the party Nouvelle Génération pour la République (NGR) after ending a long period of political disengagement. In 2013, he broke away and created his own party, the Liberal Bloc (BL), proposing to change the system of politics in Guinea, which he describes as an excessively presidentialist regime. Fire Milimono has positioned himself against the junta.
Sankule Janku there with the profiles of two candidates, Dr. Fire Milimono and Abdoulaye Yero Balde. If you are just joining us, this is the first edition of WADR's live coverage of the presidential election in Guinea, a crucial and historic moment for citizens and the country at large as it transitions back to constitutional rule almost 3 years, or after 3 years, since the military coup in September 2021, which has been led by General Mamadou Doumbouya, a candidate in today's ballot. Now, we are being joined from Conakry by Aïssatou Diallo. Good morning, Aïssatou.
Good morning.
And how are you today? How is Conakry?
Conakry is calm this morning.
Very well. First of all, let's start. What's the mood like? Because we understand that days before now, there is a bit of tension, especially with people fearing, what to expect, whether or not it will be peaceful. Tell us, are the polling stations open, and do you see adequate deployment of voting materials as well as electoral staff?
Of course, most polling centers opened on time, and essential materials, such as ballot papers, ballot boxes, voter registers, indelible ink, and voting booths are in place. Electoral officials are present to supervise the process, and security forces are deployed to maintain order. However, as is often the case, the situation may vary by location, with some stations reporting minor delays or shortages in the day, which authorities say are being addressed. Overall, the voting process is proceeding in a calm and orderly manner.
Now, talking about the voting process taking place in calm and safe manner, what's the speed of one voter really going through the process? Is it smooth? Is it fast? How fast is it?
I didn't get that question.
Yes, how long does it take for one voter to cast his ballot?
It doesn't take a very long time. Inside the booth, voters make their choices in secret. And after marking the ballot, it is folded and deposited into a sealed ballot box in the presence of polling officials. So the voter's finger is then marked with indelible ink to prevent repeat voting. So the entire process is overseen by electoral officials with observers and security personnel on hand to ensure transparency, order, and compliance with electoral regulations. And polling stations remain open until the official closing time, after which ballots are counted at the polling station.
Well, according to the DGE, over 6 million eligible voters are expected to cast their ballots today. Does it appear right now that the voters' turnout rate is impressive?
Of course, it is impressive this morning, as from what I've seen from the centers that I visited this morning. It is really impressive, and people are coming.
Are you there, Aisatu?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, you were saying, I'm not sure you
You
are
getting
done
me?
talking. Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. I'm not sure you are done talking.
Okay.
Well, tell us just before we wrap up this discussion. Do you see young people and women queuing up to participate in the vote? And if they are, tell us what some of their concerns are coming up to vote in mass, or what their motivation is.
Actually, as I said earlier on, the atmosphere is generally calm and peaceful, and polling stations are operating in an orderly manner, with voters queuing patiently and electoral officials carrying out their duties as expected. From what I've seen, I've also seen a lot of young people coming out to vote, and especially women too. They are really motivated to vote. I've asked a lot of questions this morning, and from the answers that I got from them, they have the motivation really to be there because it was for this morning.
Hmm. At least more than 11,000 security forces were deployed to maintain a calm atmosphere, or should I say, maintain law and order during this process. I mean, is the deployment just enough to provide security and protection, or a bit of intimidation? Because, of course, it's a military regime, and the head of the regime himself is vying for the presidency. He's seeking to legitimize his position and continue in office. So, what is it about, protection or intimidation?
From what I've seen, it is of protection, as a significant number of security personnel, have been deployed nationwide to protect polling stations, electoral materials, and voters. And police officers are visibly stationed in and around voting centers, as well as along main roads to maintain order and prevent disturbances. Some authorities say the high presence is meant to guarantee a peaceful, safe, and transparent voting process, although some voters have remarked strong visibility of security forces. So the overall situation remains calm and orderly for now.
Hmm. And my last question to you will be, do you see a good amount of election observers monitoring the process? I mean, ECOWAS led a large number of election observers to the country earlier in the week. We also reported that EU deployed election observers. Do you see them present?
From what I have visited, I've seen just few present at the centers this morning. Yeah.
Okay, then. Thank you very much, Aisatu Jalo, all the way from Conakry. We'll be talking to you much later in subsequent editions of our broadcast.
Thank you, too.
Today is Guinea's presidential election, the first since the 2021 coup. Join us for the live coverage, debates and reports, minute by minute as the election transpires. 9 candidates, 1 seat. The race to the Guinean presidency is on. Incumbent transitional head General Mamadi Doumbouya campaigns to transition to a civilian president, and 7 others are in the race for Guinea's top job. Today, over 6.7 million registered voters will deliver their verdicts on who becomes Guinea's next leader. Join West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar and online WADR.org, YouTube and Facebook for a full day's coverage. Guinea decides, WADR covers.
Many thanks for staying with us. Indeed, 9 candidates, 1 seat, and today is the D-Day that Guineans get to decide who leads the country. And just before now, we brought you profiles of 4 candidates. Let's continue in that process before bringing you special reports and, of course, expert analysis of Guinea's economy, security, political, and governance journey since independence. But first, let's bring you the profile here of Mohamed Nabi, who is a business strategist, and Abdullahi Koroma, former parliamentarian who was in office from April 2020 until the 2021 coup. Sandona Mendy has more.
At 42, Abdoulaye Koroma is vying for the highest office in Guinea. Originally from the Nzeri-Kouré region in Guinea's forest region, Abdoulaye Koroma now wants to reach the highest office in the land. A member of the National Assembly between April 2020 and September 2021, the date of the coup that overthrew the assembly, he has a certain understanding of Guinean politics. By running for president, Abdoulaye says he wants to do politics differently and inject new energy into the management of public affairs. Abdoulaye Koroma has been involved in the business world for several years. After university studies in economics in Guinea, Senegal, and Russia, he became active in the economic sphere. First, he co-founded the firm Global Consulting, then owned the company Global Transport. He is also president of the Guinea Korea Development Association and president of the Guinea Agro-Commerce and Agriculture Products Sales Company. The economic sector remains a key focus of Abdoulaye Koroma's development policy for Guinea. Another candidate in this presidential election is Mohamed Nabe, who also has a similar profile to Abdoulaye Koroma. A graduate of the Sorbonne in France, he is an expert in business strategy. Since 2006, he has been active in the mining and economic sectors. Initially, the branch manager for Bokeh mining zone at the Societe Generale Bank of Guinea. He later became commercial director at Guinea Cement Industries in 2012. Between 2018 and 2020, he pursued advanced studies in France and the United States to further develop his skills in economics. Mohamed Nabe clearly believes strongly in Guinea's economic potential. It is precisely on the business and economic sectors that he intends to focus his efforts to create wealth and develop Guinea. Mohamed Nabe is also deeply interested in issues of democracy and governance. He has been called upon several times by the African Union and the European Union for election observation missions in Equatorial Guinea and Nigeria. Mohamed Nabe has recognized expertise in electoral processes.
Sandona Mendy, the profile of Abdoulaye Koroma and Mohamed Nabe. Now, to end our series of profiles of the candidates in Guinea's election, we concluded Mamadou Doumbouya was born on December 5, 1984 in Banankoroda in the city of Kanka. A master's degree holder and a decorated military officer, having obtained certificates from certified military institutions around the world, Doumbouya is the transitional president of Guinea and is seeking to legitimize his stay in office through today's ballot. Aissatou Diallo in Conakry has his profile.
Born in Banankoroda, Kankan region, Guinea, General, formerly Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, is a Guinean military officer who has led the country since the military coup of September 2021 and has emerged as the central figure in Guinea's 2025 presidential election. Doumbouya began his military career as a member of the French Foreign Legion, where he rose to the rank of corporal before completing his service in 2009. After returning to Guinea, he underwent extensive training with several international armed forces and later became the commander of the Special Forces Corps, an elite unit within the Guinean military. His professional experience includes missions and training programs in France, Senegal, Israel, Gabon, Afghanistan, and other countries. He steadily advanced through the ranks of the Guinean Armed Forces, becoming Lieutenant Colonel in 2019 and Colonel in 2020 before being promoted to the rank of General. On September 5, 2021, Mamadi Doumbouya led a military coup that overthrew President Alpha Condé, suspended the constitution, dissolved the government, and established a military ruling body known as the National Committee for Rally and Development, CNRD. As head of the transitional government, he has overseen a series of political reforms, including the 2025 constitutional referendum, which introduced major institutional changes and made it possible for him to run for president. Although Doumbouya initially promised not to seek the presidency, he later reversed his position following the adoption of the new constitution. He is now widely regarded as the leading candidate in the December 2025 presidential election, likely due to his control over state institutions and the broader political environment. His leadership has attracted criticism from opposition parties, civil society organizations, and international observers who accuse his government of restricting political freedoms, suppressing a dissent, and delaying a full return to civilian rule. Supporters, however, argue that he has brought greater stability and is capable of promoting economic development, particularly through major mining projects and structural reforms.
I said to Jalin Konakru the profile of General Mamadou Doumbouya, who is deciding through this ballot today to transition to an elected and democratically elected president of Guinea.
Today is Guinea's presidential election, the first since the 2021 coup. Join us for the live coverage, debates and reports, minute by minute as the election transpires. 9 candidates, 1 seat. The race to the Guinean presidency is on. Incumbent transitional head, General Mamadou Doumbouya campaigns to transition to a civilian president, and 7 others are in the race for Guinea's top job. Today, over 6.7 million registered voters will deliver their verdicts on who becomes Guinea's next leader. Join West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar and online WADR.org, YouTube and Facebook for a full day's coverage. Guinea decides, WADR covers.
Thank you for staying with us, and you're on to the first edition of WADR's live coverage of the elections in Guinea. Now, since Guinean independence in 1958, the Republic of Guinea has grappled with persistent challenges to democratic governance, including limited political participation and a fragile rule of law. These difficulties have persisted despite government efforts to attract foreign investment and improve public services. With the presidential election taking place today, analysts say the vote could signal a new chapter in Guinea's political evolution, potentially realigning the country with democratic governance trends seen across West Africa. While many citizens and observers welcome the prospect of a democratic transition, others remain skeptical, fearing the electoral process may fail to dismantle Guinea's long-standing pattern of military-dominated leadership. The country has been ruled by military or authoritarian regimes for much of its post-independence history. Political analyst Professor Gorgui offers insight into Guinea's current governance and political landscape.
Well, Guinea is a special country because of what the country did in 1958, that's to say, saying no to France, to its projects of an African Union involving all the colonies. And it was Guinea who refused, and then this jeopardized the French project. So Guinea really represented something important in the past because it represents resistance, it represents sovereignty, and today we are moving towards an election which is meant to elect a new president after some years, 2 years, 3 years of military rule. This maybe will herald new leadership, new governance, new opportunities for Guinea. But we have got to understand also that the military is running for president. And I don't believe that there will be any difference between what Guinea was or has been these past 3 years and what Guinea will be like tomorrow. And the elections, I believe, will result in the election of the current leader. There is no doubt about this because this is the intention of the military leaders to stay in power and continue to rule the country.
What would you say about the history of Guinea, from democratic form to military or some takeovers in the country?
To tell the truth, Guinea has not experienced any real democracy since its independence in 1958 because the civilian government, the civilian ruler, Sekou Touré, was considered to be a dictator, even though many can consider him to be a hero fighting against France, defending the interests of Guinea. But the bottom line is that he ruled as a dictator. And then the military who took over from him also ruled as dictators. Any leader you name in Guinea, whether civilian or military, they have relied on their own will, and there hasn't been any real change. So in some countries, we can see sometimes periods of true democracy, but in the case of Guinea, I have not so far seen any period of its political history where we can talk about a leader, ruling the country according to democratic standards.
What's the guarantee of a military leader governing a democratic state in the case of Guinea?
Well, maybe we can say that the military ruler is maybe willing to change things. That is something that is on the table. But the bottom line is we have been witnessing these attitudes from the military rulers for years, for decades in Africa. That to say, military taking over from the civilians and then organizing election, to say that we're moving now back to civilian rule. But in actual fact, I don't believe that this is really genuine civilian rule. It is still the military who control everything because the leader in Guinea is a young leader, about 42 years, 45 years. So his decision to hand the power over to the civilians through himself, I don't believe that this is something that is something that we can consider to be a move from military rule to civilian rule. The reality remains the same.
Does that mean that we are heading towards similar situation in Guinea-Bissau?
Well, I'm not going to compare the two countries, but we cannot really set a clear dividing line between what is happening in Guinea-Bissau and what is going to happen in Guinea. It is still the military who seized the power by force and then put in place, constitutions or rules that will allow them to continue sitting there and controlling the countries. This doesn't really, to me, bring in anything new. We are simply repeating the same situation that has happened not only in Guinea-Bissau and in Guinea-Conakry. We had the same situation in Ethiopia. We had the same situation in Benin with Kerekou and the others. That doesn't change. This is not a new situation. This has always been the case in Africa and elsewhere also in the world. That to say, leaders seizing the power by force and being compelled to hand the power over to the civilians. And they, maneuver in order to organize election called. The result is that they still are there governing.
The voice of Professor Gregory Jang, a political analyst. In Liberia, a member state of the Manu River Union, just as Guinea, civil society is calling for peaceful elections and smooth transfer or transition of government in Conakry 3 years after the military toppled Alpha Condé in 2021. Adama Damstar, a human rights defender in Monrovia, shares his concerns about some violations that have taken place in the neighboring country, especially in the build-up to today's crucial ballot.
Well, I think this is overdue. I think we advocated every time or time in, time out for a democratic process for every country to be a driver of every country, and that democracy becomes the roadmap and the basis for which citizens can participate in decision making rightfully. So when you have a democratic government, it becomes a government that is chosen by the people rather than having a military government that is more dictatorship in terms of governance. So I think towards a new election for Guinea, this is a milestone. This is indeed in the right direction because it bordered directly on the citizens' participation, citizens being part of the decision, and of course towards a peaceful driving of the country, and of course towards the region as well, Liberia, Sierra Leone, the Cote d'Ivoire. We are all bordering together. So if Guinea go back to a democratic rule, that gave room for all countries to again go back to the table democratically to do all of the diplomatic engagement and relationships. So I think this is welcoming, and we look forward to a peaceful election.
Adama Damstar, I love your opening statement, the fact that democracy allows for inclusivity and participation of all citizens regardless of their gender and social status. But for many experts like yourself, you have said again and again on different fora that it doesn't just start after elections. It is a process that actually even begins before the election day and after the election day. What are some of the concerns you've seen that you want to highlight regarding Guinea's journey to return to constitutional rule?
Right after the coup, there was a timeline given by the coup leaders to return the country to democratic rule. Unfortunately, that did not fall and did not happen in the specified time that was given initially. So the issue of timing, enlargement of time is a concern that undermines democratic process. So that's one aspect. We have to make genuine use of timing, the timing that will allow citizens' participation, citizens in decision making, and a good governance process that will be driven by citizens' own inclusivity that will allow them to be part of the day-to-day decision. So that's one aspect. Another aspect has to do with the democratic process that is unfolding right now towards election. There are different groupings, including the United Nations civil society grouping, media institutions that have raised concern regarding number of human rights related issues. Some of those issues could be political repression or intimidation. That's one aspect. When this is happening ahead of election, you suppress opposition parties, you suppress critics to not allow their voices to be heard, and that undermines the spirit of democracy. So that's one aspect. The other aspect also has to do with security. Wherein a military route is turning to a surveillance route, is just almost like removing the uniform from on the military man, but his actions, his mentality, his training still remain a military person. So security is also of a concern, in the fair and credible democratic process. Another aspect that I would love to raise is also around the issue of suppression of opposition parties. When we listened and read the different outlets and we listened to the amount that was being charged for candidate registration, that is mind-blowing. That's one aspect, because looking at an underdeveloped country or a developing country going to election and hearing the kind of money or funding that is being laid down for candidate registration is of concern. So that's another aspect. Another aspect has to do with restriction of the media. Media play a pivotal role in democracy. So a free media is always a driver of democracy, wherein we heard that certain media outlets have been suspended, independent media have been restricted, internet are also being restricted. All of these are all grave concern towards a credible democratic process. More could be said, but these are all important aspects that I think should be considered if democracy is based on fairness, if democracy is based on credibility, if democracy is based on the people's decision.
What are the lessons to be learned from Liberia when it comes to the issue of holding a peaceful election, a peaceful transfer of power, and of course respect to democratic tenets or the tenets of democracy?
So some of the takeaway from Liberia is that given the fact that we came from a brutal conflict, that tore the country apart, that suspended constitutional rule for many years. But Liberia returned to democratic rule 2005 and gave room for even the first female president in Africa to be elected. And since that time, we have had a number of different elections democratically, and they allow citizens' participation. They allow political parties from different institutional standpoint to participate in this election. So allowing oppositions and political parties to have a voice, independent voice, is a strength of democracy. It is maturity in democracy that we can allow critics to even question some of our action, and they allow us to improve. So based on the critic, based on the issues that we raised over the time, it helped the government to improve. So if the Guinean government going now into election will now incorporate the opportunity for opposition to speak, opposition to participate, it then send a new day for Guinea, and send a new day for the Guinean people. But more importantly, citizens' participation is a driver of democracy. So that's one thing Liberia have enjoyed, where the citizens of Liberia participated in these elections, election before election currently that have happened that brought the new government into office. All of these opportunities happened because citizens' voices were being allowed, citizen participation was being allowed, oppositions were allowed to participate. So we see that Guinea, or we urge Guinea to also follow suit, so that at the end of the day, Guinea will now be seen as a country that has totally returned to democracy and will be celebrated as one of the countries in our region.
The voice of Adama Dempster, a human rights defender in Liberia. If you're just joining us, this is the first edition of WADR's live coverage of the presidential election in Guinea. Some 6.7 million eligible voters are expected to take part in this election in Guinea, and 5 voting centers have been made available here in Senegal, according to the embassy. Now, since coming to power after overthrowing President Alpha Condé in September 2021, General Mamadou Doumbouya has consistently advocated for strengthening Guinea's economic sovereignty. The transitional president, who is a candidate in the December 28 presidential election, intends to build on major economic reforms and dismantle 2040 strategic project. However, despite these announcements and ambitious policies, Guinea's transition has been marked by significant challenges, including a high cost of living and a liquidity crisis. Here's a report by Sankule Janko.
We are capable of fully assuming our economic sovereignty.
In his speech on the eve of Guinea's 65th Independence Day on October 1, General Mamadou Doumbouya emphasized the importance of economic sovereignty.
The theme we have chosen, drawing inspiration from the past to build the future together, and economic sovereignty, reflects our commitment to continuing to exercise our economic and political sovereignty for the greater good of the sovereign people of Guinea. This essential bridge to prosperity and human capital is at the heart of my vision for the sustainable and responsible socio-economic development of our country.
In recent years, Guinea has recorded solid economic growth, with gross domestic product (GDP) projected at 7.1% in 2025 and averaging more than 10% between 2026 and 2029. General Mamadou Doumbouya expressed satisfaction with these results.
The Republic of Guinea has obtained its first sovereign credit rating, an annual B+ with a stable outlook, through an international presence. This is the first time in our history and testifies to the credibility of our reforms and the confidence of the international financial community. This recognition now propels Guinea to the rank of the second largest economy in Francophone West Africa, paving the way for competitive and sustainable financing to support our national priorities.
The growth of the Guinean economy is driven primarily by the mining sector, with increased gold and bauxite production. However, the Simandou project remains Guinea's greatest hope for boosting its economy. This project is a result of a partnership between the Guinean government and several international operators. It combines mining operations, a railway network, and port infrastructure, with total investment estimated at more than $20 billion, or over 11 trillion CFA francs, according to Ismail Nabe, Guinea's Minister of Planning and International Cooperation.
With the revenues from Simandou, it's true, we will diversify our economy to create jobs. Hence, the development of the responsible and sustainable socio-economic program Simandou 2040. It is a diversification of our economy. We will create a sovereign wealth fund to capitalize on the revenues we have received from Simandou to finance structuring projects.
Simandou 2040 is a promising project whose benefits could extend to the Guinean population if it is properly managed by the authorities, explains Guinean economist Belaba.
If it's well managed, it could easily double Guinea's GDP. It could allow Guinea to assess a very significant financial windfall. The big challenge is how these funds will be managed. During President Alpha Conde's administration, more than $20 billion were announced from China. France had announced over $2 billion. But the question of disbursement arose because Guinea doesn't have enough bankable projects. So today, the Guinean public administration does not have the capacity to absorb funds, and that's the major challenge to overcome so that each ministry can implement bankable projects that are being studied and structured to enable these various projects, particularly the Simandou project, to allow Guinea to have roads, schools, hospitals, and access a very affordable financial system for Guinean small and medium-sized enterprises.
Alongside these positive developments, several challenges await Guinea's future president. According to a report by the Africa Center for Strategic Studies, the cost of living increased significantly during the transition period. The proportion of the Guinean population experiencing acute food insecurity rose from 2.6% in 2020 to 10.7% in 2022. In December 2021, more than 560,000 Guineans were considered to be facing a food crisis and in need of assistance. By June 2024, this figure was estimated to exceed 1 million. Another major challenge is the liquidity crisis that has recently affected the country, alongside suspicions of nepotism and corruption at the highest levels of government.
Sankule Janko, that sectoral report focusing on Guinea's economy. With correspondents across hotspots in Guinea, stay with West Africa Democracy Radio all day for the live coverage of the elections taking place in the country on 94.9 FM, online at WADR.org, and for real-time updates, log on to our social media pages, X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok for voting process. I'll be back at midday for the second edition of the broadcast in English, while my colleagues in French return by 1 p.m. for the second edition of the election coverage. Now, as a reminder, the election is taking place here in Senegal, according to the Embassy of the Republic of Guinea, in 5 centers here in Dakar region. You have the Alassane Njai Allo School in Medina, as well as El Hajj Mour Joub School, all in Medina. In Kédougou, voting is taking place at the Cultural Center. In Kaolack, voting is taking place for Guineans at the Abdoulaye Khan High School. In St. Louis, it's taking place at Livestock School. And in Thiès, Umbour, Guineans will be voting at the Salis Station College Second Councillor. I'm Abdullahi Hassan. Once again, many thanks for being part of the first edition of our live broadcast of the elections in Guinea. We'll be back at midday. Meanwhile, do enjoy the rest of our broadcast.
This is the live coverage of the 2025 presidential election in Guinea.
WADR. You can listen to us on 94.9 FM in Dakar through our website www.wadr.org.